Hey, it's the hippie. Morning.
Let me start by saying I'm going to be talking today about tribalism and tribalist community as it relates to Asatru heathenry and our modern world today. Let me start by saying something that I haven't posted or said in other lectures beforehand. I'm just some guy. I'm not a college professor. I do not have a doctorate. I am not speaking the word of law or anything that is anything other than my personal interpretation of the facts that I see in the world that I live as somebody who's been Asatru for over 20 years. So, that being said, tribalism. A lot of people have some different ideas on what tribalism is. When you look online and you start reading about tribalist communities and tribalism today, you get a lot of people that lean towards that hippie commune kind of thing. Oh, this is tribalism. So there's a bunch of people living out in the middle of nowhere, taking care of each other like hippies, and they don't shower and whatever. I don't know. And then you get other people that are starting to look at the tribalism that was being used when Asatru first started coming around, and you start looking at that late 70s and the whole kind of white supremacist movement into Asatru, incorporating tribalist in with folkish and the terms that they were using too. And so people have this idea that tribalist is somehow a bunch of neo-Nazi white racists living in a compound with guns on the edge surrounded by a fence, and that's not true either. Although both of those things are actually tribalist communities. That is not the sum total of what tribalism is. Tribalism literally is a community, a group of people living like a tribe. Especially today. You can have tribalist communities that are nothing more than an apartment building or a condo building where everybody has a condo owners association, and they meet on a regular basis and they take care of their property and they make sure everybody's secure, and they have barbecues and they help each other out, and Miss Johnson on the 7th floor whose daughter just died needs some help for the next couple weeks, and all of a sudden everybody else in the complex helps to take care of things because they all live there and they all work together. That is a tribalist community of a type. Especially in today's modern world. They're all working together, they do most of their stuff together, they spend a lot of time together, they live together, they know each other, they know what's going on and in and out. They have created a type of urban modern tribe. A lot of Asatru communities, especially in the part of the country that we're in, regionally here in the Southwest, we have a lot more tribalist communities than a lot of the East Coast does, which is an interesting little conundrum that comes up because the East Coast is much more compact. They all know each other more, but I think that offers an opportunity for more individualism and less of a need for tribalism, whereas we have this very spread out kind of area, and people aren't really compact, and there's this desire. We know we're all here, and we know there's a bunch of us, so there's this desire to come together. We talk to each other a lot. We communicate a lot. We do a lot of events together. When everybody knows that there's something going on, such as this event here, everybody comes out because they want to say hi and they want to meet, and we all kind of know what's going on. And we create our own tribalist type of environment. Now, not so much in a regional aspect, but locally. When we create a kindred, we are creating a tribe. And this is a difference that a lot of people have fallen through the cracks in the modern terms, is kindred has become this common term that people use for a lot of things. I know Wicca groups that use the term kindred, and just general neo-pagan groups that use the term kindred. And a lot of places are starting to call their organizations a kindred when it's more of a fellowship or just a club. People come in, they pay a monthly or yearly due, they come up once a month, and they have some kind of little thing that they do, you know, whether it be a cook-off or a little ceremony or something, and then they all go about their way. And if you were to stop and talk to one of them and say, hey, you know, did you see Bob last week? How's he doing? They go, oh, I don't know. We met, and, you know, we had lunch and did our thing, but it's not like I actually talked to Bob. That's not a kindred. That's just a club. It's just, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. The idea of a kindred is kinship, and a kindred is extended family, and a kindred is a tribal community. And most of us, when we are building kindreds, especially those of us that are Asatru or heathen, when we are building kindreds, we are trying to build that community, that tribal community, where we hang out with those people on a regular basis, we talk to those people on a regular basis, we all know what's going on, and if something happens to them, the rest of that tribe comes together to help them get through that situation. That is one of the defining factors of a tribe. If you look at our ancestors, you look back in time, they all lived a tribalist life. And you don't even have to go that far back. We don't have to go back to, 100 AD or 500 BC. We can go back to the 900s in Iceland. and look at the heathen communities, or even the Christian, the starting to convert to Christian communities that lived in that time frame, and what you had was a farmstead from a guy who owned the land, and all the people that lived with him that either worked on the land or was his family or knew him, and all of these people worked together for a single reason. If for some reason you were excommunicated from that tribe, you were gonna die. Period. Now, there are some exceptions, of course, if you read through history, and you know, Grettir's a really good example from the old sagas. But again, these are isolated incidents of very unique, heroic people. Most people, if you couldn't become a part of the tribe, show a value within that community, and be accepted on a permanent level, that meant you were an outcast, and an outcast meant you weren't going to be able to live. Because everybody needed each other. Everybody needed somebody to help cut wood and help take care of the crops and help take care of the cattle and the sheep, and make sure the house was up and going, and make sure somebody was making wool and someone was turning that wool into clothing, and then somebody was building that ship, because when the summertime comes, we got to take all this stuff and we got to go overseas and sell it, and holy crap, that takes a crew of 20 men. All of these people had to work together. That was their livelihood. So in a modern sense, we don't necessarily have to work together as a tribe to live anymore. We are very capable of being solitary heathens and solitary Asatru and existing and having a prosperous life all by ourselves without ever having to work within any type of Asatru community. But as Asatru, as people who try to bring back the old ways of our ancestors in today's times, we should be working for that community, because that's what our ancestral culture was based on. They were forced to have that community whether they wanted it or not, and so therefore hundreds and hundreds of generations evolved around the necessity of that community, and our culture evolved with it. In a modern sense, we should be holding on to that too, although we have to look at it differently. Now we're not building a kindred for the sake of tribalism because we have to have it because we're going to die if we don't. I'm never going to become wealthy enough to own my house if I'm not part of a kindred. Okay, that's a crock of shit. We all know it. You can get enough money to earn a house in these days and age being a manager at 7-Eleven. It's going to be hard work, but you can do it by yourself, and you certainly don't need a kindred for it. What we do now is we build a kindred for multiple ideas. One, like-minded community. The idea that we have people that we share a thought with, and not just being Asatru. A kindred should be like family. So we have a group of people who are not only like us in the fact of our cultural desire to live and be a certain way, but also that we share things with. These are people that would be our friends even if we weren't Asatru. They're people we would hang out with whether they were Asatru or not. They just happen to be, and we happen to share that type of bond, and so we try to build that tribe. And that tribe can be very small or it could be much larger, but either way we build a tribe of people that we want to be with. These are people we want to hang out with. And once that starts to build, then we start to build that modern tribalism. We start to build a group of people where if for some reason Mike were to break his leg and couldn't go run the shop, and Amy had to do it by herself and couldn't do it, we have a community of people who would volunteer, you know what, I've got this time off, and so-and-so's got this time off, and so-and-so's got this time off. We're going to come in and make sure everything's okay until Mike's leg's taken care of.
And they have.
That's that tribalist aspect. That aspect that a member of my tribe is in need, and although he doesn't have to have me, I'm going to come make his life easier because I can. Because it's okay, and I'm perfectly capable of doing it, and he's part of my tribe. And that's the type of tribalism we're building now. We're not building a tribalism of necessity. We're building a tribalism, and I've used this term before in other lectures, of preparedness. If we're a better tribe, we're better prepared. If we're closer like a family, not only do we take care of ourselves emotionally, and we can help take care of ourselves physically, but now we can help take care of each other in those times of need. Whether they're small personal emergencies, like Mike breaking his leg and needing help at the store, or they're larger emergencies, such as all of a sudden the economy completely falls to crap, me and my wife lose our job, the house goes into bankruptcy, and we don't have a place to live. Well, hopefully, if I have a strong enough tribe and I've built that type of kinship within my kindred for that tribalism, I have people that are going to say, there's no way you're living on the street. We're going to come together and make sure you're okay, and you can help you get a job and help you get back on your feet, you know, and that type of emergency to a horrible emergency, to, you know, a hurricane. Not that we were going to get hurricanes or blizzards here, but, you know, a massive flash fire, and half of Phoenix goes up in flames. Okay, and then you need to get out of Phoenix. You have that tribalist community that comes together to get out of the place, to go somewhere, to help take care of each other. You now have more resources, you have more manpower, and you already have built a community of people who know how to work together, who know a certain kind of chain of command because they've done stuff together, who know... we had friends a few years ago who were living out in Queen Creek. And, Queen Creek. And the big dust storm came through and knocked down 32 foot of brick wall. Insurance company came in, gave an estimate, this is all we're going to fix for it. It was horse property. This is all we're going to pay to fix it. Wasn't even remotely close to enough to have a company come in and rebuild the wall. So the Kindred did. We came in, and in one day, we rebuilt 32 foot of brick wall. And only one of us has ever laid brick before. And it may not have looked as pretty as the other part of the wall that was professionally done, but we hit it with baseball bats. And my buddy drove a truck into it by mistake, and it stayed up. The wall we built was nice, and it was done right. It didn't look as perfect and as flat and as level as the part that was commercially done, but the part that was commercially done went over in a windstorm, and the part that we built withstood a truck. Okay? But we did this out of community, and we did it because as a tribe, there was a certain level of understanding of chain of command. We had someone who had done it once before. We had a couple of people who knew how to mix cement and knew how to mix grout and mortar, and then we had people with some construction skills. They'd built stuff before, so they know what a level is and a hammer and a spike and stuff like that. And so we come together and we lay out a basic chain of command, and we lay out a plan. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to get it done, and hopefully in a day we're going to pump out this much stuff. And working as a tribe, we actually finished the job rather than only 50% of it, which is what we thought we were going to get done. You can apply that same aspect within a tribe if you've done that as a tribe before. If you've come together to finish someone's backyard, to help finish an addition, to redo their floor, to just help them keep their business afloat because you can't make it in to take care of it every day. You've developed a specific type of chain of command within that modern tribe that can now apply to other emergency situations, whether they're small emergencies, such as a friend getting hurt, or whether they're big emergencies, such as there's a nuclear meltdown on the west side of Phoenix, and so we're just going to go up into the mountains for the next few months until they take care of it. Or worse, there's an entire national breakdown, and you have to actually come together as a community and redefine how you're going to live. Any of these things are possible. Obviously, the more close-to-home stuff is what most people worry about, and it's what you should worry about. Losing your job, breaking your leg, losing your car, not being able to get to work, somebody breaking into your home and stealing all your stuff, that kind of stuff. But that's where our tribe exists now. Not out of necessity, out of preparedness and out of support. And you can have that type of tribalism within any community. It exists within... The Mormon community is very heavy. They don't use the term tribalist, but if you go to any ward area, any ward community, you want to talk about a tribalist community. Around that ward, everybody knows everybody else. They all know everybody's business. They all know who's got what. And to a point, because of what the Mormons teach, they all know who's storing what food, how much supplies they have, who's got what guns, how much ammunition they've got, who's got what trucks, what runs, what don't. And if somebody goes, oh, my water heater just broke down, oh, Bob Johnson over in 246, just around the corner, has two of them because he just fixed one for so-and-so and they told him he could keep him. You tell him, I told you to come over there, he'll bring it to your house and hook it up. They have a tribalist community. Okay? The Catholic Church, if you go to Orthodox Catholic Church, have developed very tribalist communities. Now, not to the extent of the Mormons, but they used to be. Orthodox Jews, look at Orthodox Jewish communities. And Muslims and Hindus. Communities that are very orthodox or very traditional. They build this very strong tribalist community because they want to be around people that understand how they think and how they live, and therefore that community builds around supporting each other, again, not out of life and death necessity, but out of the desire to live and be around people that think the same way and feel the same way. And so by supporting each other, they know they have a better chance of being successful, both whether they live in a rural environment, which you want to talk about tribalist community, you go to a small town of like 1,000 people out in the middle of nowhere, that is a tribalist community. And it doesn't even matter if they all go to the same church, that matters nothing. They're a tribalist community. If all the economy falls apart and everything goes to hell, that town will erect a wall around it and put guys on it with shotguns and nobody's ever getting in. That's just the way it is.
That's my home.
Yeah, I'm from South Dakota. You get a farm, everything goes to hell. You can look back at the 30s, look at the Great Depression, and you look at farms in the Midwest. What happens? Every family member they knew and every close friend of a family member they knew moved onto that farm. They put fences up, and people stood there with guns and said, "Move along." And they took care of their own. They sold what they could sell, and by forced depression through the government saying, "Oh, well, we're not buying this much milk anymore," and we're not buying, they said, "Fine, we're just going to feed our families with it." And then they started stills and started running liquor, and that's a whole nother story, but it still evolves into that idea of tribalism, that they were doing all this to take care of their little unit. And in an urban environment, we still have that. Now, we are more spread out. Obviously, a lot of us know each other. We hang out on a regular basis. We talk, or maybe we're part of the same kindreds, maybe we're not, and we're just very, very close, and we come to events on a regular basis, and we're spread out through the city. We're still creating a tribalist community. We still talk to each other on a regular basis. We still communicate. We know what's going on, and if there's a problem, we know about it and have a desire to help fix it. And that is its tribalist community within itself. And even within an urban area, you can still get more tribalist than that. Again, you look at the Mormons. Right in the middle of Phoenix, who have a ward right there, and you walk through that neighborhood, and not only is almost everyone there part of that ward, they all know each other, they do everything together. If something's going on, they all know about it. Even if people who aren't part of that Mormon ward live in the community, don't know about it. All of the other Mormons in that area do. And so we have the chance right now to develop a stronger tribalist community. We have the growth within heathenry and Asatru in general to start building tribalism, not in the idea that a lot of people used to have 20 years ago, and I say a lot because it's not everybody. A lot of people seem to think everybody wanted this utopia hippie commune. They didn't really. It's just the general community didn't understand what they were trying to push for. They were trying to push for what we're talking about right now. Now the community has enough growth and has enough development, and there's enough of us around that everybody's starting to talk about this, but they're avoiding the word tribalist because of the negative connotation it got in the past. But that is what we're doing. We need to remember that what we were trying to build are tribal communities. Not hippie communes, not military bases of white Nazis, not just groups of people